I will be presenting to you my garden design concept for Aging in Motion, a multisensorial garden for physical movement of the elderly. The garden that I'm proposing is located within Tecumseh Park in East Vancouver. And in terms of context, the park is located within a residential neighborhood. It's adjacent to a senior's home, which is Menoport, and it is also a walking distance to this elementary school. In terms of topography, the park has a relatively flat terrain with 2 meter wide paths at the peripheries and mostly just open lawns. At the edges are also some oak and fir trees and some newly planted specimen trees within the paths. I made this cube drawing to document the observations that I had on my site. And as a summary, I have this diagram to illustrate all the sensual experiences out of the site, from what I smelled down to the activities and the sounds out of these activities, even the different textures within the site as well. And so, looking at my observations, I noticed that one thing is missing within the park. That is the elderly in terms of spaces for them within the park. So I decided to focus on providing a garden for the elderly who are obviously who live very close to the park. So I initially made a list of the different categories of aging, and I narrowed down my focus for this exercise to look into the physical changes, or I mean, physical um, category or aspect of aging, since most of the elderly are not able to be outside to do some physical activities. And then with that, I came up with just a uh, initial list of the program of the site, having some social spaces for them. And then the biggest move would be looking into circulation, both being able to provide for an easy access and something more of an intermediate access, open spaces for them to do some exercise and something more of the meditative activities. And the second big move would be in terms of the planting design that would help stimulate senses, add interest as they go through the circulation path, and as well as directional planting. So I initially started with my creating concepts out of historical precedents of gardens, which were used for meditation and for healing. So the labyrinth, the paradise, and monastic gardens in the straw gardens in Japan, and also looking into what kinds of outdoor spaces are available for physical fitness for the elderly within Vancouver. So mostly what I found are just the provision of these exercise equipments within the parks. And then out of those precedents, I decided to focus on the stroll garden for my design concept, basically being the best form for creating dynamic paths for movement in terms of changing elevations, changing views, and even the degrees of enclosure in terms of the planting design. So different moods as you go through the stroll garden. And then since I had a hard time envisioning my how I would want the topography to be designed to go up and down some paths, I started with creating this clay model just so I could picture out I wanted the how I wanted to manipulate the site, and then creating sections out of that to generate my contours. And then I came up with this site plan for my garden. So basically, the idea is, let me see. Okay, so I'll just show you the other plan where I took out the canopy layer so you can see the paths. Basically, I have two paths, one in the outer, which is more of the easily navigable path because it's just flat, and then the other which leads towards the elevated space for rejuvenation, where you there are also some exercise spaces at some of the corners. And then in terms of just to illustrate how I wanted to do the topography on site, I made this section drawings also showing the different materials from the paths, which were more for accessibility, and then the variation for seating areas and for the rejuvenating space, which I also incorporated some um, acupressure pavement. And then this is another section view showing the relationship of the rejuvenating space, which is the highest elevation on the site, in relation to the children's playground and also the road on the other side. And then the second big move is in terms of planting design for the census. So I took consideration of choosing plants which are ideal for wayfinding. So more of just simple, warm colors of whites and yellows. And then, of course, provision for shade along the seating area. So maintaining the same color palette, and also to add to their experience of aroma and even sounds within the site, choosing plants which are food plants for birds and bees, as well as aromatic herbs. And then also choosing the color yellow for warmth, comfort, and even activeness and happiness. And then to contrast that with the purple lavenders, so that these also serve as landmarks along the path, more of the wayfinding elements as well. And then this just shows the planting plan for the tree canopy planting plan. So basically, I just have six trees. Most of those trees at the sides are the bigger canopies, and then more of the specimen trees within the inner circle. And then um, focusing more of the interest in terms of the shrubs within the below the eye level. And then also thinking about how I could lay out all those plant materials so that there's interest all throughout the seasons. And so I'd like to end my presentation with just this view of one of the views I have on the paths.